There are no rules in life to get what you want. But in order to make anything happen, and we all have different visions of what we love to do, what turns us on, it all starts with you. But ultimately, it's going to take your personal hard work and courage and resilience and grit and tenacity and creativity to make anything happen.
Welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. I'm your host, Kavita, and the founder of Power Purpose Play, a global community of women in midlife. I'm here to tell you that it's your time now to rediscover what has always been inside of you and bring that out into the world. If you're wondering what's next, but don't know quite what that is, or if you feel a twinge in your heart telling you that you have so much more to do and so much more to offer, you're in the right place. Ask yourself, if not now, when? Do you want to leave your job, start your own business, take control of your health, reignite the passion in your marriage, write that book, or at least that first chapter? Transitions like this can be daunting, but through listening to my story and interviews with incredible women every week, I hope to inspire you to take action. I rediscovered myself after the age of 50, and I know you can too. It's my time now to help you do just that. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. For those of you who are new to the podcast, welcome. I'm your host, Kavita Ahuja, and I'm the founder of Power Purpose Play. And we are a global community of women in midlife. We want to flip the thinking that midlife is a crisis. In fact, it's an opportunity for us to rediscover ourselves and to put the magic that only you have out into the world. So speaking of magic and reinvention, my guest today is an epitome of that. I'm beyond thrilled to have on our show today Canadian icon and entrepreneur Erica Ehm. I'm sure Erica needs no introduction, but for those of you who may need a reminder, I'm not sure why, but she is an entrepreneur, thought leader, and creator. Perhaps best known as a VJ or video jockey on Much Music, which is Canada's music station, Erica is known for her pioneering work in content marketing and social media. She is the founder of the digital agency Ehm Co and a niche publishing brand, the Yummy Mummy Club, both which are focused on the desirable mom market. Under Erica's leadership over the last 14 years, her companies have grown over and have over a dozen prestigious awards. She's collaborated with health researchers and earned a Governor General's Innovation Award nomination as well. And her new podcast, Reinvention of the VJ, features personal interviews with the stars of Much Music, which is peppered with inspiration for reinvention. So Erica has built a multimedia portfolio, including credits as an author, journalist, playwright, award-winning songwriter, and sought-after speaker. So Erica, wow, that is quite a remarkable and varied resume. It's such a pleasure to have you here today.
Thanks so much. I'm happy to be here and looking forward to having a productive conversation where people can take something from what I do and apply it to their own lives.
Thank you so much. Yes. As I said in my introduction, you have such a remarkable story of continual reinvention, I'd say. And for our listeners who perhaps don't know your story, maybe you could tell us briefly about your journey and also what actually drives you, because you continually reinvent yourself, and what actually drives you to do that. And maybe just tell us briefly about your story.
Yeah, I guess I've gone from television to radio to stage to digital and back and forth between them. Mm-hmm. And there is a through line. In looking back, I do believe that I have a passion for empowering people, for inspiring people, and educating people. And I do that through authentic personal storytelling on whatever platform I find. So if it's the lyrics of a song, if it's the script for a play, or if it's a platform for moms, written by moms, that brings to life a tapestry of voices, or if it's on a podcast where once again, I get to hear people's authentic stories. That's what drives me. And although when you look at all the different types of media, sort of creative playgrounds that I work in, there is a through line, and it truly is to empower people and to touch people, connect with people, and do it through storytelling.
That's amazing, because that's actually one of the reasons I started this podcast is everybody has a story, right? And we can learn so much from each other's stories. And you started out, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your journey in terms of, I touched a little bit about it with respect to your Much Music journey and from there on, but could you give us a little snapshot?
Well, a lot of that is on Wikipedia. I mean, you go to my website and find all the different things that I've done over my life. I mean, I'm 60. So
oh my God,
if you want me to start at the beginning, we're going to be here for about 5 hours.
Okay.
Suffice to say that when I have a vision of something that I want to do, I go and do it. And it doesn't matter what platform it is, and it doesn't matter who gives me permission. I find a way to make it happen. And I think that's what people need to know is there are no rules in life to get what you want. But in order to make anything happen, and we all have different visions of what we love to do, what turns us on, it all starts with you, unfortunately. I mean, you can listen to this podcast and you can glean ideas from the both of us, but ultimately it's going to take your personal hard work and courage and resilience and grit and tenacity and creativity to make anything happen. And it doesn't matter if you're 17 or 57. It takes the same amount of effort. And every single thing that has happened in my life has happened because I put myself out there. Now, of all the successes that I've had in my life, there are countless opportunities that didn't work out. So many that I could cry just thinking about them. All these amazing ideas I had that I reached out to people to connect with me on. And I've heard no so many more times than I've heard yes. So many amazing opportunities I've been turned down for. And I could be bitter, and I could be afraid of putting myself out there, making myself vulnerable. But my success is because I say, fuck it and fuck you. Sorry, I do. And I put on my, call it my bold face, and I get up and I throw myself in the ring again.
Right.
And every time I'm knocked down, which I am on a daily basis, I pick myself up and I say, all right, I'm going to do it again. And sometimes I hear the word yes. Sometimes something clicks. And then I'm able to manifest or bring to life something that I want to happen. But it's rare. It's hard.
Yes.
Yes.
I hear you.
It's hard.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because sometimes people who are listening, they'll see successful people like yourself and think, oh, it was easy for her. And I don't believe that's so. And I think what happens is that people have this fear of doing things, or a fear of like, I'm not good enough syndrome. And what you just described in terms of just going for it. And even if you hear the word no, you continue to do it.
Yeah, it's not if, it's when.
It's when. Right. So you seem to have an endless supply of this courage. And we talk about this a lot in this podcast and in this community, is how do we actually maybe not get over, but how do we ignore those fears that are internal fears within us that say, I'm not good enough, or I'm not blank enough?
You get what you think. And if you think it long and hard, you will become exactly that, not good enough. So it starts with your mindset. It starts with your thoughts, as opposed to, I'm not good enough. How about, I'm going to learn to be better. I'm going to learn how to do that. I can handle failure. All the great people fail. I'm ready to fail. Failure doesn't define me. How about all those things? Say that to yourself. Say, when I get knocked down, I'm going to get up again. I'm going to work harder. Everybody gets told no. everybody fails.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody does. I've failed way too many times.
Mm.
And I'm okay talking about those failures because I learned from them and they don't stop me.
That's fantastic because, as I was saying, somebody like you, we kind of put a pedestal on people who are in,
Yeah, but that's
and it's like an
crazy
imposter
because
syndrome is what I'm,
you
yeah,
don't
that's
know
right.
my
But
life.
I'm so glad that you brought this up because it's real. I mean, everybody goes through it and how it's a matter of how do we actually approach life? Do we see it in a negative way? Or do we say, like I said in the beginning, reinvention and midlife is not a crisis. It's actually an opportunity.
Well, everything is an opportunity.
Yes.
Everything is. It's how you choose to look at something.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you put yourself out there, you have an idea, you want to get a job, you reach out to an employer, you know the fit is great. You put your resume in, or you're smart and you go a different route and you're a little more creative so that you get someone's attention
Mm-hmm.
and they respond back to you and they say, no, thanks. You can say, so glad to hear from you. Thank you so much for getting back to me. Listen, I know that this may not be the right time, but is there any feedback that you can give me? Perhaps why this wasn't a fit right now?
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel very strongly that your company and I should be working together. So I'm going to do what you need me to do to make that happen. And I'm going to reach out again. And what you're doing is you're building a relationship. And if you keep on doing things that you think that potential employer or partner or whatever it is would be interested in, you just keep on dropping them little emails. Hey, listen, I know that you're really busy. You don't even have to respond to me. I just wanted you to know that I just did this and I'm always here if you need me.
Hmm.
And then in 6 months later, after you've sort of sent them a few emails, you're going to send them your resume again. Say, hey, listen, I'm wondering if anything has come up again. See, it's all up to you.
Mm-hmm.
And your first reaching out to someone and getting a negative response doesn't really mean that much. It does if you say, oh my God, I'm not good enough. They don't want me. But guess what? Maybe they don't have room that day.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe there were two people to choose from, which is very common. And they chose one who had less experience than you because they thought they can pay them less. Like, you don't know
Don't know.
the reasons why things don't happen. And if you pretend you do, then you're lying to yourself because you have no idea what causes someone else to make a decision. You think you know, oh my God, I'm 57. I'm not good enough. I'm too old, right? You don't know.
Yeah.
So use every opportunity to build a relationship with people that you want to work with. And very slowly, you will become part of their circle. You will make yourself top of mind, but it's up to you.
Yeah. I'm hearing from that example is just tenacity.
Yeah.
And if you really want something, you'll find a way to do it. And the other thing that triggered what you said is that often we look at things that come our way that stop us. For example, this happened in my career, and then I was in the corporate world, and I thought I was unhappy with what I was doing, and I thought maybe in my current situation, and I thought, well, maybe if I go for this other job that within the company that it'll make me happier, right? And so I applied for this job, and I was told that I was too overconfident in the interview, and it was.
Erica makes a face of disbelief.
Yes, I know. And at that moment, when we have these moments where we are told no, or no, this job isn't for you, whatever it's a terrible moment. But then those moments are, I think, triggers to really make you think about what is it that you really want. And they're an opportunity for you to look inwards and say, well, maybe this isn't the right thing, or maybe this is a sign telling me that there's something more for me out there.
Yes. And also, as my husband said so wisely to me many years ago, there's a seat for every toilet. And that was obviously the wrong toilet for you at the time.
Yes, it was. I'm so glad it was.
They didn't appreciate you. And it's all your choice. So you could have said, okay, that's great feedback. Thanks very much. Or you could say, wow, we are not aligned in our values because I want a company that values the fact that I am confident and straightforward.
Right.
I mean, these are incredible skills to have from an employee. Who wants a placid employee?
Exactly.
Because employees are really, if someone is a good leader, you're nurturing something called an intrapreneur, which are people who work for companies, but feel like they are valued and that they work almost as entrepreneurs to help build the company from within without having to own the company, without wanting to own the company, but in believing in it so much that you want to help it grow.
Mm-hmm.
And you want people like yourself who are confident, outspoken, self-motivated. And if you want to be in that kind of an environment, you have to find the right place.
Right.
And clearly you understood that this was no longer a place for you, and you took action and you made it happen, whatever that happen is. And there are times in our lives where things will be crappy because when you left that business, I'm guessing you might not have had something right away. And that's really scary. But trust that you will be proactive and you will put the work in and you will find a place that values who you are because you just learned something and you're going to act on what you learned.
Well, I truly believe that every obstacle or everything that comes in our way is a sign. And that was a sign for me to move on and pursue what I'm doing now, which is incredibly fulfilling. And so it's interesting how that happens. But I wanted to ask you a little bit, you're a speaker on leadership and success mindset. And we kind of touched on that a little bit, but maybe you can tell us some of the things that you talk about that are important around this and maybe some examples that you talk to corporations about or some from your own experience.
I think to be a good leader, you have to have guiding principles. You have to understand the values that matter to you and that matter to your company. So that requires an awful lot of work because a company is not just a what, it's a who. A company is made up of personalities from the CEO to the mailroom. Everybody is bringing their selves. So a leadership has to acknowledge that and has to be able to manage personalities and inspire those personalities to become, like that word I mentioned before, intrapreneurs, people who believe in the values of the company and believes in the purpose of the company and will work hard because they're proud of where they are. That's what inspiring leadership is. That's a difference between a boss and a leader. A boss is someone who says, you need to do this. Don't ask why. Just do it.
Right.
Don't be confident. Be passive. And you'll get what you ask for. You'll get people doing the bare minimum. And when you're not looking, they'll screw around because they don't really care. They're not invested in the company. As opposed to people who are leaders, who inspire their staff to better themselves, and in doing so, better the company, grow the company together. And how does that work? Well, leadership requires great listening skills. In order to be a great leader, you need to know what your staff is thinking and to get feedback from them on an ongoing basis, to understand from your staff what may not be working in the processes within the company. If you give your staff permission to speak up, you will learn so much about the inner workings of your company because you can spend a lot of time on building all these internal processes, but they may not be working.
Right.
And if you give permission to your staff to speak up, you will find all the glitches and be able to make everything smoother for everybody. I think it's also really important to listen to your clients or the end users on an ongoing basis, to survey them and ask them questions. Interesting story. Someone who you should speak to on this podcast is a woman named Carolyn Ray. She runs a website called journeywoman.com, which is a website geared to women in their midlife who like to travel solo.
Oh.
And she's
a woman after my heart.
Yes, I know. And that's why I'm saying you really do need her. And she actually bought this website from my mother
Huh.
who started it in her midlife and ran it for like 30 odd years and changed a lot of people's lives in the process.
Hmm.
So Carolyn took over this business, which is a travel business,
Mm-hmm.
at the height of the pandemic. Now, when I sold her the platform, I honestly did not know that there was a pandemic looming
Right.
2 months later.
Oh my God.
But sure enough, she spent her life savings on a business that was doomed to fail. What she did, she sent out a survey to all the women. She's like 100,000 people on her mailing list, and said, how can I help you at this time? So she asked them,
Mm.
and people told her what they needed. And based on that, she rebuilt the offerings from just a website to a community with many interactive opportunities. Something I could see, Kavita, your eyes are lighting up because
Yes.
it's not dissimilar to what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what's interesting. They said they wanted a membership.
Right.
Now, all of us here are talking about monetization. How do you monetize your business, right? So she initiated this membership that the people told her that they were interested in. But when she launched it, she realized that the uptake was kind of slow. And so she assumed that it was because people were uncomfortable paying for something that they were already getting for free.
Right.
So she sent out a follow-up survey and asked her readership about a membership. And if you didn't sign up, tell me why. And what she found out was that the women were saying it was not expensive enough.
Really?
She found out that they were saying, we will pay more money if you provide us with these services.
Hmm.
So she's implemented them and will proceed with the way that she has been told by the people who are paying the money. So great leadership listens to and responds to customers, to your staff.
Right.
You listen to what your competitors or your frenemies are doing
Yes.
and take their great ideas and you sort of put them into your flow, or watch them fail and go, do not try that. Because we see now that people in my business are trying it, it's not working. Also, you need to listen to the numbers. So it's really important as a leader to have access to people or have your own skills to understand what is working financially. If
Right.
you don't understand your numbers, then you can't take calculated risk, which is how businesses grow. So it's essential that you invest in your own knowledge of numbers and or a team of people, or at least one person who can guide you accordingly. And finally, a great leader understands their sense of purpose. So listening to your heart is important, because I think business is all relationships, isn't it?
Yes.
Relationships with your customers, with your staff, with your colleagues, your frenemies, if you will. It's all relationships, which comes from your heart. And perhaps that's a female way of looking at doing business, but I'm watching many women
Yes.
who are really rocking their businesses because they do that.
Yes.
So leadership is also not being afraid, being able to take, as I mentioned, calculated risks after listening to all those parties that I mentioned, and for being able to rise up from failure, which you will have, because if you're going to take risks, some of them won't pan out.
Right.
Company that is not growing and innovating is a company that is dying. And I would say that's actually true for all of us. The idea of reinvention. If a company is not constantly reinventing, which means they're not innovating, which means they're just basically going to peter out. But the same goes for us. We are not constantly reinventing. Then what is keeping us relevant? So for those of you who are 57 and saying, I'm not relevant anymore, well, what are you doing about it?
Right.
Do something.
Yes.
You have to reinvent. You have to do the hard things that make you relevant again.
Mm-hmm. Wow, those are amazing tips. I love the story about Caroline. And that is so true, what you said. I mean, so many things, but listening to your customers, listening to your own purpose, because oftentimes we will put things out there that we think are going to do well, or that we think, oh, this is going to be the next best thing, but we don't listen to what our customers really want. So that's a great example of that. And I think what you mentioned about having a sense of purpose and women-led businesses, and I agree with you. I've been seeing so many more women-led businesses doing so well. And that's one of the things I wanted to ask you, because it seems throughout your life, you have always kind of had the importance or the focus on the female and female focus. And you started, you began firstly in a very male-dominated industry. And then you went and you founded the Yummy Mummy Club, and you have your Ehm Co, where you're focused on the female consumer. So why is that so important to you?
I think it's because do what you know. I'm a woman and I connect with other women. I don't necessarily like the way men do business. I was going to say I don't like men, but that's it's a little harsh and not true.
Right.
But there is something to be said about character traits connected to men versus women. And I just, being a woman, I guess, am constantly attracted and impressed by women in business who borrow from what would be considered male traits, but they do it in a different way. And I feel like the Prime Minister in New Zealand, to me, encapsulates everything about the way women can lead with great power and force and doing the right thing. I feel like women, and I'm completely stereotyping here, but I think that women lead differently. And perhaps it's because we're always told that we're second, it's implied that we are second best. And we always have to work harder to prove ourselves in male-dominated world, because sadly, it still is old white men who dominate the world still. And there are still people who are changing the laws about our reproductive freedoms, for example. That's insane. We are still fighting those kinds of battles. We're not equal, and we are still the underdogs.
Right.
And we need strong people to fight on our behalf. So I'm a little bit insidious in the sense that what I'm trying to do is very quietly spread this message of empowerment to women so that we quietly and slowly rise up to become this unstoppable force. And eventually, sooner than later, what with all of our daughters who we are raising to be equally powerful,
yes,
and our boys to treat women or their girls as equals, soon the tables will not turn, but it will shift to a more equitable business world and personal life as well, where women and men's expectations in the home and at work are the same. In terms of leadership, I look to leaders within companies to see, how do you respond to women who are raising kids and need time to leave work for doctor's appointments, etc.
Yes.
This is a shifting world right now, and this pandemic, as horrible as it is really highlighting the challenges that women are still forced to make and to live with. And I'm hoping that as we talk about it, that changes are going to be made within each home and also within companies who will finally have that aha moment, which is, we need women in the workforce, and we need to acknowledge that they have their second shift at home.
Right.
And we need to be able to provide them with the time and the flexibility to be able to do both.
Well, I so agree with that, obviously, because that's the whole purpose of power, purpose, play. But I agree with you in that women leadership, I think women can lead with power, but they can also lead with grace. I think what you're mentioning is, I do believe that the tides are changing. I had an interview just recently with a lady named Emily Barros, and she's the publisher of, has founded a publishing company solely for women writers. And I asked her the same question. She said, in these male dominated industries like publishing, it's always been very few women actually get published compared to the men. So, but she says that, like you were saying, that the tides seem to be turning. And that's, the more we talk about it, the more we bring these issues forward, I think the more we can see change. And I mean, I just was watching the President Biden's speech yesterday, and there was 2 women behind him. And so that's so inspiring, right? So it's quite...
But it's kind of frustrating that would be inspiring.
I know. It's like, that should have been there a long time ago. I know.
They belong there.
I know.
And I think that men are as capable of leading with grace as women.
Mm-hmm.
They just need to be given permission from society, and they need to see that it actually is positive for their bottom line.
Right.
And it does. There is so much evidence and research being done on when men become advocates for women,
mm-hmm.
how it improves the bottom line,
mm-hmm.
and how diversity improves the bottom line. In innovation, for example,
mm-hmm.
when you have diversity in your workforce, the innovation skyrockets.
Right.
So, and that is connected to the bottom line ultimately. So
yes.
It's there. The proof is there. I think a lot of men are just threatened right now. Old white men are threatened. And so they should be.
Right.
Because the next generation is nipping at their tails and they don't like it.
I see that you're doing a bit of work around this especially with the YMC. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing in terms of, especially in the pandemic right now, with how are kids coping, how are families coping? It's been so difficult, right? And is there any initiatives that you're doing right now that are addressing that? Or
Hi, my friend. Kavita here. Do you often feel blocked from moving forward? We all feel that way at times. These are referred to as energy blocks. I've created a short, actionable PDF guide to help you release your negative energy blocks. Click the link in the description to download it now for free. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, we launched a survey at the beginning of the year, the COVID State of Mom survey, where we asked moms to tell us about how they're feeling, how they're coping,
mm-hmm.
what behaviors they find are changing in terms of like, are you eating more junk food? Obviously. And to be able to then share it back to the community so women know, first of all, that they're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
And then to be able to share that research, those results with companies.
Right.
So in fact, to be a spokesperson on behalf of Canadian moms and tell employers, moms are not okay. They are struggling at home with their kids and learning remotely, etc. And you need to be more flexible, and you need to understand that their productivity will be lower.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because they're not working. It's because they're holding 2 full-time jobs at the same time,
mm-hmm.
with this additional sort of layer of pandemic stress
mm-hmm.
over all of us, anxiety and stress about, am I going to get sick? And taking care of older parents who are terrified and unable to leave the home because of the pandemic. So I kind of made myself an unofficial spokesperson of Canadian women with kids, and to let businesses know that we're struggling.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's really important work you're doing. Congratulations. That's awesome. Is there anything really surprising that has come up or from?
Well, I guess the number one statistic that a lot of people sort of gasp at
mm-hmm.
is that when we ask women about their current state of mind, only 7% of women said that they're doing well.
Mm.
So 93% of women say they're either stressed really stressed or burnt right out.
Yes.
That's a problem.
Right. I find that too. I launched this business during COVID, and I think that it's kind of a wave of a few different things. Is that firstly, we're forced to be home, and we're looking again at internally what is it that we really want. We may have had been in a job and we don't want to go back to it, or we might want to reinvent ourselves to do something else. And then having to be home and being online, it's forcing us to look inward. So it's so much stress that's around us. And the thing is that this wave of women and men really trying to, their values are changing. I don't know if you believe that, or if I think they're looking in internal more,
and I think
internally more.
It's absolutely not just women.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, in fact, maybe even more so is it affecting men who are working from home and realizing, wow, I get to see my kids.
Yes.
I get to be a hands-on dad. I get to define my time. I get to have more leisure in my day, do the work, because people are finding, companies, from what I understand, research says that they are finding that their employees are just as productive. They're doing it in a different way and on their own terms. Be healthier. So I know a lot of men who have left their companies or have said they do not want to go back and work in person anymore.
Yes.
So there's going to be a major shift. There is already a major shift, but I don't think it's going to go back. Our world will never go back to what it was before, at least not for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. I like the way you said, I get to do this. I get to do this versus I have to do this, right? Because it was always like, I have to get in the car and commute to work, or now it's like, I get to spend time with my family. So it's a little bit of a shift in mindset.
Which is great, because it's way better for kids to have both parents around at some point, and men get to have a life, and they become more than just someone who goes to work.
Right.
They get to really dig in and, see their kids' first step, or take them to the park, or help them with their homework. And that becomes the basis for a more equitable society.
Absolutely. You talked a little bit about reinvention, and I wanted to kind of bring up your new podcast, if you don't mind, is maybe talk a little bit about that. It's called The Reinvention of the VJ. And tell us why you decided to start this, and what are some surprising things that you've learned and from this journey of this new journey of yours.
Well, I started Reinvention of the VJ during lockdown because I was kind of bored, and I like to start projects. Well, not just start them. I like to start projects and then actually bring them to life.
Right.
And my clients from my agency were not initiating a lot of projects because they were living in fear, which was too bad because there was so much opportunity at the time to connect with moms online. So I decided to initiate this project myself. So there were two pieces to it. Number one, I just was looking for a project, and people were saying to me all the time, Erica, you've got such a good voice and you're a broadcaster. Why don't you do a podcast? And I'm assuming people were expecting me to do something in the mom space, since I've been working in that space for 15 years.
Right.
But I thought, there are so many podcasts about moms and by moms, etc. And I'm no more qualified in some ways than many of the other women doing it. So I thought, what is it that I have that makes me really unique? Well, that very few people have had the experience of being part of the team at Much Music from the very early years.
Yes.
And being so closely associated with Much Music. Like when you first introduced me at the top of this podcast, you said, probably best known as a VJ. And I'm like, oh, stop.
I'm sorry.
35 years ago. And people keep on saying that. And I don't think it's actually true anymore. I think a lot of people know me as an entrepreneur, as an advocate for moms, as a writer, as a songwriter. I think that it's almost like a myth that keeps on getting perpetuated by all these introductions on podcasts. Anyway, having said that, I thought it would be interesting to go back. And there was a lot of unfinished business that I had there. I was there for 13 years, and then I left. And when I left, I kind of locked that door because I wanted to reinvent. I wanted to be more than just that girl who was on Much Music. the thing is that while I worked at Much Music, I was an entrepreneur and I was a performer. So I took time off to be a part of a theatrical production that toured across the country, and I had a hat business for a couple of years. And
A hat business?
hat business, that's right.
Oh, nice.
I designed hats and
Oh, wow.
produced them and sold them
Mm-hmm.
in shops, boutiques around the country, etc. And I started a record label, writing songs, winning songwriting awards. I was very busy while I worked at Much Music. So when I left, I wanted to close the door on Much Music and focus on Erica Ehm, the entrepreneur, who I already was, but being on Much Music really overpowered that, understandably.
Mm-hmm.
I also wanted to show people that, yes, Much Music was an incredible platform and an amazing opportunity. But my success on the channel was because of me, because I did the work every day and I built the persona of Erica Ehm. I'm grateful to Much Music for giving me this incredible opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
But I take credit for building me. I wanted to do that outside of the platform of Much Music.
Mm-hmm.
So I left it behind, and I would bristle anytime anybody brought it up because I was like, can we just move on, please? And over the last 30 years since I left and have achieved so much in terms of making many other projects come to life.
Right.
Showing success in a variety of ways, I was ready to go back and talk about those days again from a different perspective, because I felt that the idea of reinvention is so important now. As you mentioned earlier, these days, many of us are thinking about what we want to do in our lives next, partly, your group of people, our group of people who are midlife. But then again, the pandemic is causing a lot of people to question what they've been doing and why.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel also, as I said before, that we are all in a state of reinvention throughout our entire lives. It's a really important thing to evolve as people and to listen to where you are in your stage of life and do things that matter to you as you evolve. So I thought, why don't I speak to each of the people who were hosts or stars of Much Music and talk to them to see, did their time at Much Music hold them back or in their art of reinvention, or did they use it as a slingshot to get to their next opportunities?
Right.
And it's been a real interesting mix of answers. I'm loving the conversations because we're able to speak as almost adults, if you will. Not that we were young at the time, but we have years where we're able to look back now without any sort of political proper speak required. We can really talk about what it felt like back then.
Right.
And I was really excited to see all these unique paths that my colleagues who were on air at Much have explored.
Mm-hmm.
And how some of them have stayed in broadcasting, others who have become entrepreneurs, some who have gone back to school and completely changed directions, all of whom talk about Much Music so fondly, but also acknowledge the pressure that we were under at the time. And we all sort of laugh at how crazy that connection to Much is with our audience,
Right.
and how they'll never let us go. And with it comes a strong responsibility because we represent probably a more innocent time. And we were also cultural curators at the time. And we were the voices that people listened to as they were growing up.
For me, when I think about it, and I distinctly remember you on Much Music, and those times, obviously we're around the same age, and it was a time of innovation and it was fun. So I think when people think of you and remember you from Much Music, it's because it brings back those fond memories.
Of course.
But I will say that the reason I wanted to have you on the podcast today was, yes, of course, from your experience with Much Music, but most importantly, how you have actually taken that. And you said, used it as a slingshot, right? To reinvent yourself in so many different ways. And that's what to me is extremely empowering and inspiring. And I think that's what I wanted to bring out in terms of what you've done since then and how you've reinvented yourself and with all these great examples of how you've done it. So while I said, yes, most people know you from Much Music, I wanted to bring out the fact that, look what you can do with your life, right?
Well, look what you can do with your life when you have a sense of purpose. And when I look back, people post things on YouTube of me back in the day. I'm very proud of what I see back then because I was seriously feminist. I was kick ass, don't fuck with me back then.
Oh, yeah.
And that was important to me because I felt back then that I had the opportunity to be a role model for other women. So by the way that I dressed, by the way that I spoke, by the way that I handled myself in interviews, that would be sort of a roadmap for other women to be strong when someone tries to put you down, or strong in stating who you are and what you believe in and what matters to you. Because I would speak about that all the time.
Right.
And that's really important, I think, for leaders to walk the talk. If you want to have employees or even products and clients that are successful, it starts with you and the way you behave in your life, your personal life, as well as your professional life. And I'm very proud to say that I've been consistent with that throughout my career.
You started with, it's all within you. It's all about you. And you kind of ended with that too. So that's such an important thing because really everything that we do is all from within. And in my opinion, reinvention doesn't mean giving up everything and starting all over. It means taking whatever's inside of you and bringing that out into the world, because we only can bring out, we're all individual. Nobody else has what we have. And it's almost an obligation for us to bring that out into the world.
I would also say that reinvention is taking what you already have and then applying it in a new way. That's what innovation is, right? It's building on something and looking at your skills, for example, and saying, well, I was a salesperson at Cisco for 27 years. So I have a great understanding of what it is to be a salesperson. I know how to do that. How can I now apply that in a different way with a different group of people? Like, we all have skill sets that can be leveraged in different ways. And that's what reinvention is. It doesn't mean starting from scratch. Why would you do that?
Right.
We all, over our years, have developed incredible skills and insights and communities and networks. And the key word, I think, with reinvention is leveraging what you already have.
And acknowledging what you've already accumulated and all the knowledge you have and all the skills you have. Because a lot of times people don't like you said, oh, I was just a salesperson and I don't know, I can't do anything else with it. But just think about what you've accomplished. Like, what are your skills? So that's one of the key things that I always focus on is, what are your skills? What do you love to do? What do you not love to do? And you have the choice, right?
And find your people.
Yes.
Reach out fearlessly.
Yes.
Friendly, fearless, and build relationships and build a new network of people.
Absolutely. This has been wonderful. I love the conversation. I when people talk to you, they probably ask you, oh, what was your best interview or what was your most memorable time at Much Music? But I think what we've talked about is so empowering and meaningful for a lot of people. So I really appreciate that. Can you tell us, people are looking for you and what you're doing right now, anything that you want to share in terms of where we can find you or any other initiatives that are happening?
Well, I'm always doing a lot. If you really want to connect with me, LinkedIn is a good place.
Okay.
I work with entrepreneurs and companies as a consultant. I help people I guess my job is creative problem solver. So I do that for companies. They reach out to me if they're having some sort of issues, creative issues. I come up with some solutions. continue to work with a lot of brands who are looking to connect with moms. My agency, as you mentioned, is Ehm Co.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been doing this for 15 years. And so we are pretty innovative, and we have an amazing team, but also a great relationship with Canadian moms. We know what moms are thinking,
Right.
and we know what they need. And so we help brands tell the right stories to connect with moms. And I'm always looking for new opportunities to collaborate. Who knows what's going to happen around the corner?
Right.
I think that for me, I don't want to lock myself into one thing. I'd like to have a stream of income in a variety of different ways with different groups of people. And to me, that's the perfect life, right?
Right.
Is to be collaborating with a variety of people on a variety of projects. And that's what turns me on.
Amazing. Amazing. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Are you any fun plans for the summer? Or I guess we're all kind of inside now, so it's
I have no idea what I'm doing tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hopefully things will open up soon, and maybe one of these days we'll be able to meet in person as well. So that would be wonderful.
How nice would that be?
Thank you so much, Erica. I really appreciate it, and I think the lessons that you've imparted today are going to be helpful for so many people. So I appreciate it very much.
Erica Ehm's remarkable journey of continual reinvention, influence, creativity, and leadership left me so inspired. I'm sure it did for you too. The thing I also really admire about her is her confidence and tenacity to go after what she really wants. As she says so eloquently, it all starts with you. So what are you waiting for? Here are Erica's key takeaways. Number 1, there are no rules in life to get what you want, but in order to make anything happen, it all starts with you through resilience, grit, tenacity, and creativity. 2, you get what you think, and if you think it long and hard, you'll become exactly that. If you think you're not good enough, you'll become exactly that. Number 3, everything is an opportunity. It's how you choose to look at something. It starts with your mindset. 4, use every opportunity to build a relationship with people that you want to work with, and very slowly you will become part of their inner circle. You'll make yourself top of mind, but it's all up to you. 5, there's a seat for every toilet. 6, there are times in our lives when things will be crappy, but trust that you will find a place and people who value who you are. 7, to be a good leader, you have to have guiding principles. You have to understand values that matter to you and to your company. 8, there's a difference between being a boss and a leader. Inspiring leaders listen and respond to customers, staff, competitors, and take their great ideas or learn from their failures. 9, if we are not constantly reinventing, then what is keeping us relevant? 10, we are all in a state of reinvention throughout our entire lives. It's a really important thing to evolve as people and to listen to where you are in your stage of life and do things that matter to you as you evolve. Thank you so much. And as always, my intent with this podcast is not only to inspire you, but to encourage you to take action on your dreams. What do you want to do moving forward in life? Why not start now? To help you do this, I'd love for you to join my signature program, It's My Time Now, How to Rediscover Yourself in Midlife. We only have a few spots left, and doors are closing this week for our pilot group. If you're interested in learning more or to be put on the wait list for a program which starts in September, send me a message at kavita@powerpurposeplay.ca. I know you can be many places, so I'm so grateful that you're here, spending your time for your own personal growth. Please share, rate, and review if you find this podcast meaningful. It means a lot. Stay healthy and stay safe, my friends. Until next week.